It is very, very natural for people who lose someone to then lose all of the things in their life that brought them happiness, that brought them life, that brought them goodness. Because when you build a life together, all of those elements of your life are attached to that person. I have made very, very actionable steps because I knew that I was not going to let myself die. So I tell you, if you're in that place, I'm so sorry, but you're not alone and you will get out of it. Believe me. Hear me when I tell you, this is not me minimizing the loss. The life that you had is being dismantled. But if you face it with the right mindset and you say, yes, I understand what's happening. This is a process that will take time, but it will end. I do not want you to think these are the only points of transformation. These are just some of the things that I have done that have been very, very helpful for me. So I'm going to begin with that. The first thing is, hey guys, how are you today? It is Alison from Alison Answers and Lager Counseling Services. Today, I want to speak to all the widows or the children or the people who have had the tragic experience of losing someone to suicide. I am addressing this directly because of my own life experience and because it is something that happened to me. And I feel like it would be just wrong for me not to share with you just the validation of understanding what that does to your life and how much it impacts every single crack and crevice of your entire life. So I first want to honor you for being here. I want to thank you for being bold enough to face this conversation of how we can, as widows or as any person who's tragically lost a person suddenly to suicide or even in other ways, the immediacy of a life cut short and having to suddenly navigate an entirely different life without any tools, without any strength or emotional, bandwidth to be able to manage it. So I just stand with you and I would like to represent to you the evidence that it's possible that wherever you are today, no matter how hard this is, because I believe me, there is nothing that felt worse. There is nothing that overtook me more in my whole life. And I've had a lot of different, really difficult experiences. There is nothing that I would describe it as it felt like a bomb blew up in my house. And I'm scrambling to figure out how the hell I couldn't run away from myself. So, to all of you who are here, I'm here to give you about 4 points, very simple ones. I do not want you to think these are the only points of transformation. These are just some of the things that I have done that have been very, very helpful for me. So, I'm going to begin with that. The first thing is I want to acknowledge that I know how hard this is. So as you hear me say certain things, you may feel like, oh my gosh, does she not realize how difficult this is? So I want to just set that stage. Yes, I do. I have been there and I still go there. And any of these tips are not about me being insensitive. They are real truths about how to find a way to rescue yourself, basically, from what seemingly feels like you cannot be rescued from. So to begin, the first thing is I want to kind of map out the landscape of your grief. So when someone suddenly dies, think about if you have built a life with them and all the things you've done with them, all the interactions that you have shared together. It could be restaurants, it could be your dog, your children, it could be a television show you watched, it could be something you did. My husband and I, every Sunday morning at like 6 in the morning, we would ride the boardwalk in our neighborhood on the beach. So we would go like 17 miles. It was the most beautiful, wonderful thing. And I loved that boardwalk. I loved everything about that time that we would have every single week. And we would do it in the winter. So after he died, I immediately just thought, I'm never going, like I'm never going to be able to do that again. You hear that thinking. It's a very natural thought. I also thought, I can never watch American Idol again. Like he's not going to see who won. Like we were doing this together. Or I can't look at my dog the same way. Every time I look at my dog, there's this feeling of how we went and got the dog. And looking at just, there was so many things because when you build a life together, that life, all of those elements of your life are attached to that person. What I have seen, please hear me on this. It is very, very natural for people who lose someone to then lose all of the things in their life that brought them happiness, that brought them life, that brought them goodness. So I did make a decision and I decided that the Sunday following, or it might have been the one after that, I went on that damn boardwalk. It was not easy. And I did it every Sunday. And I could cry telling you this, but I would get on that boardwalk and I would say, you know what? The boardwalk's not dead. The beach isn't dead, and I'm not dead. And even though I was grieving and I would cry and I would experience it, I had to create a pathway in my brain that me and that beach and boardwalk were still alive. And I had to architect, I had to design and develop an experience with the boardwalk that was different. So the first process was going there and grieving through it, the loss of not having him there, talking to him while I was on the beach, going and hearing from God, hearing different things. And it was difficult, but I am so glad I did it because I did not allow the beach and the boardwalk to leave my life. The next thing that happened was I decided, someone said to me, this wonderful woman said to me, it was my son's wife's mom. She said, you know, she said, when my dad died, she goes, I lost my mom too. And I perked up my ears. And I was like, how so? She said, because everything that my mom did with my dad, she no longer did. And my mom emotionally died with him. So as her child, and as a child who lost her dad, now I lost both. I cannot tell you how many times I've heard that. I hear that over and over. When I heard her say that, and this was in the midst of like just terrible grief and I was saying like, I can't turn on American Idol. Like, and then I was like, you know what? Turn on American Idol because I want to know who won. And you know what? It doesn't mean that I'm dismissing my husband's life. It means that in the honor of him, when he made the choice to die by suicide, I make the choice to honor him with living life. And that is an honor to me. So I want you to just hear it. Hear the way that you can transform. I know that what I'm saying may seem really foreign to you, but I promise you these little small changes, and they don't have to look exactly like mine. So I want a very helpful thing is to understand. We usually don't even think of it, that we just don't want to do those things because they hurt so much. But if you understand that this life was built together, and this happens with people who get divorced too, and they have like this heartbreak, or even if they aren't heartbroken with a divorce, what can happen is that this intertwined life then is dismantling. So that is my second point to people whose husbands died by suicide or tragically died, that then you will have to dismantle all the different things. It has taken me years, and I still have things that come up where you'll need the death certificate. You'll need, in order to like pay your taxes or develop your tax return. Like, you could end up paying more taxes. There's so many things that can happen that you don't realize, and you don't realize how many times just the documentation of life, how you have to now, change things because this person is no longer here. And it can feel so overwhelming and disconcerting. But I share this with you because what I want you to understand, this is also what happens when people divorce. They're like, oh my goodness, until the divorce is, done and the house is sold or whatever it is that they're doing, they don't feel like they feel like just my life is falling apart. But I challenge you in that. And what I say to you is though, yes, the life that you had is being dismantled. But if you face it with the right mindset and you say, yes, I understand what's happening. This is a process that will take time, but it will end. And then while I'm doing this, I'm in this transitional period that then will shift into, and it can also be going on at the same time, that you are now thinking about, that you are designing, that you are considering the way in which you would like to live your life going forward. So when something ends, when someone dies, when a relationship ends, now you're grieving because waves come of grief. I never suggest that you don't feel it. I can be somewhere and all of a sudden I'm just like, oh, I feel like I got a punch in the stomach. You don't even know why. Like I can even feel it now. I can feel myself tear up because all of a sudden it's just like, oh, you just remember that first night, that horrible pain, or you remember your children's pain. See, it still kills me. But the point is that experience right there, that's your transformation. That's your opportunity to be very close to yourself and to allow yourself to feel it. Like never hold it back. But one of the things that happens to people in this situation, and no one blames them for it because it makes sense. What ends up happening is they end up having one long emotional response. So it becomes their identity as opposed to these waves of grief that come. It's like a wave, you ride the wave and then it goes down. It's kind of like, releasing the emotion, allowing it to move through your body, allowing the energy of the trauma to move through your body so then you can live the life that you're creating. But you continue to create because if we are not creating, if we are not growing, we are dying. And it is so important, especially with suicide, because suicide is an epidemic right now, to actually understand that when we join a person who's died by suicide, no matter who it is, no matter how tragic and painful that is, that when we choose death, even if we don't die physically with our body, we're joining spiritually this thing that took over the person you loved and it took over their mind. So you don't want your mind to be taken over by the same kinds of forces. There's different ways to die. Somebody could die in their body. That's one way. They're not here. And then us, can choose not to ever love again. We can choose not to ever do the magical things we did together. We could choose not to do things because we believe that we would have wanted to do it with them. So then we can't do it, right? Or when we do a new thing, we say, oh, and then we feel badly. But you allow yourself to go through it. I have made very, very actionable steps because I knew that I was not going to let myself die in this manner. So to move forward, another thing here, everything is about our mindset. So we need to shift our mindset and understand that we are now in the process, wherever you are in the process, whether it happened today or yesterday, you're in tragic. You can't even find yourself. It's like tumbling under the water and you can't breathe. You can't find breath. In that moment, that mindset is this: I will breathe. I will breathe again. I know I can't breathe, but I will breathe again. I promise you. I'm going to breathe again. Alison, you're going to breathe again. And tell yourself that. So that could be in the hardest moments. I remember laying in bed and being like, how am I going to get through this night? How am I going to wake up in the morning? Like not wanting to sleep, but not wanting to not sleep, terrified. So I tell you, if you're in that place, I'm so sorry, but you're not alone and you will get out of it. I promise you, if you let yourself. This is my other promise. If you don't let yourself get out of it, you won't. And I have seen people identify with their loss forever. until they die, their physical body. They identify forever. They no longer allow any light or love into their life. They no longer allow happiness because it almost feels like a betrayal to the other person. But it's actually an honoring of them because of the sadness of the loss, to understand that if we do the opposite that hurt them, the opposite, we're adding value to earth. We're adding value to their name by living life. Okay, the next thing is to identify. I did this thing at like day 3. Could have been day 2 after my husband died. I looked around and I was like scrambling, like, how am I going to get better? How am I going to, like out of breath? And I'm like, you know what? I just went inside and I said, I decide. I'm deciding now. We have to gain more than we lost. I do understand that that could take me my whole life, but I have to find a way to gain more than this loss. Because how do we win in life if we just choose to take this unbelievable loss and make it everything and make it overshadow all of our lives? Because that is what suicide does. It took their life and then it wants to shadow all over your life and take your life. So I knew that. I felt like it was a spiritual battle war cry from me. Like, I will be damned if I do not find gain somehow. So I kept a journal next to my bed. This is a little tip. And I would write down, because night times are so hard for me. When I think of them, I cry. So nighttime, I would write, today, I had a very intimate conversation, and I would say with one of my kids, that wouldn't have happened if this didn't happen. So in that way, it was a gain. And then the next day, I'd write something else. You know, I got up and I just walked, and I walked and I walked and I walked, and I felt loved by the trees and the flowers. And I would not have had that experience if this hadn't happened. Believe me, hear me when I tell you, this is not me minimizing the loss. This is me finding a way to get out from under the water where I can't breathe and go, here's a little air. Okay. The trees were beautiful. Here's a little air. I had an intimate conversation with my daughter. Here's a little air. You know, my daughter did her play anyhow. Like whatever it was, I just would find a way. I see, and the other part is that if you think of it, this is what I tell people who are suicidal or people who have really bad lives. I tell them, think of it as you've been handed a heavier weight today. That just means that you've gotten to the point where you have to lift it up. You got heavier reps right now and they feel impossible. But when you practice lifting those freaking weights and you keep going and it's, day upon day, you get stronger and you're more able to lift weights. And you know what else? You're able to help other people. You can spot other people when they lift weights. And you want to change lives? Push through. But I don't mean repress. Repressing is not good. Allow the feelings to come, allow them to, climax and then go down. It's kind of like labor pains. The women out there who know what I'm talking about, like, I can't make it. I can't do it. I can't do it. I can't do it. Oh my God. Oh my God. And then it's like, I did it. That's one down. And I would think like that. Okay, that's another wave. That's another wave down. Maybe I got 5 million to go, but I did that one. I got it. I got through that moment. The next thing I want you to think about, I loved one thing that my son said. He said, guys, we're just crying all the time. Everybody's like, really dark. And he said, and in these little brief moments where we laugh, he said, we should maximize those times where things are funny, where things, like, some kooky thing our dog does, instead of downing everything. Allow the laughter, allow the moment of beauty, allow the goodness in. Because if I could make the parallel to you, the person who's lost someone, hear what I'm telling you. When we allow the grief, I'm not saying we don't feel pain, when we allow it to be the only thing that we are, that is the same thing as a suicide mind. It just plays out differently. Because what happens is that the darkness just eclipses anything around us that's beautiful. And it is the building out of something that leaves us with no hope. Because the truth is, in our lives at all, and this is hard for me to say, but it is true, it's true for all of us, that our lives are not dependent upon other people. They're not. We have beautiful relationships, but if our whole sense of life is based on another person, another place, things, we lose the resilience and the strength in us that we have the power to create a life. Yes, the life that we just had no longer exists in the way that it existed before. But if we can dedicate and make a decision that I will create a life of my dreams, and it is possible to create things that have meaning in spite of this. And if you look at any of the greats, you look at anyone who's succeeded in life, they have had to do things like this. There are things that we have to overcome. I want you to see yourself. Another thing that's very hard for me to say to you. I know that people might even be insulted, but we are not victims. And if we wear that badge, it is very, very comforting, super comforting for people to see us that way. I have had to, it's very compelling. And in the beginning, it's really, really helpful when people are like, oh, like you poor thing. And they hold you because you've been, you're just so devastated and you just need someone to go, poor baby, I'm so sorry. And to hold you and to cry with you and lay on the floor with you and all of the things like that. But at some point, because it's so comforting in such a heartache, but we have to make sure that it doesn't become everything, that everything is about that I'm a widow or I survived this tragic loss and it becomes our identity. And I really can't tell you how many times I've seen this happen to people. It's not easy to choose to turn away or not have the opportunity to talk about, what happened. Because in the beginning, one of the things that was hardest for me is that I'm watching this world go by. People are just living their lives like normally. And I have this agony inside of me. And, you can go into a store, no one knows. I remember going to buy shoes and no one knew. And I felt so crazy. No one knew what happened, but I'm in the store and I feel nuts, So the thing is that, oh, I'm crying. It's so important to be kind to yourself and understand that we share a common experience. Because when there's this tragedy inside, there's a part of us, there's such a cognitive and emotional dissonance when we're feeling this inside and you're watching other people laughing and just going about their lives, or, people holding hands, they're happy, like you're seeing, maybe if you lost a child, you're seeing a child and you're thinking, no one knows. And you, at that time, you feel like you need that special treatment because you don't feel right. I would go to stores and I'd have to leave. I knew that I would only be able to be out for a very short time. And then I felt almost like like a toddler gets tired and has to go to sleep. I felt like life was too much because of all the pain inside. I tell you this because I want you to know I resonate with that, but at the same time, I needed to, as time and as healing continued, as I went through the waves of grief, as I took back different parts of my life and processed the pain, as I built new things in my life that I liked, as I had lonely nights and grieved through those, and didn't hide them, by other things, by, like whatever people hide behind. It could be drinking. It could be, a lot of people turn to that. They turn to being alone, to food, to drinking, to shopping, to anything that will numb the pain. I want to just add another thing that's very, very important. Very important. For whatever reason, when somebody dies, and I don't know if it's exactly specifically to suicide, there is something that can come and take over. And I knew this, and I warned myself about this after my husband died. Like right away, I was like, oh my gosh, I don't want to have that unbelievable anger that's inside of me that you cannot control. Because I have had other tragic losses in my life, and I was very young. And when that happened, like over time, what it morphed into was like a rage, an internal rage inside. And I didn't understand it. And it wasn't my personality. And I was so afraid I would never come back. And this actually did happen to me over this course, this next time, but I was aware of it. So I speak to people who, haven't had this happen before. If this happens to you, that you start to feel rage or like a silencing of your heart, you feel like you're numb, you don't feel anything. I was so scared of that because I thought, oh my gosh, will I ever be Alison again? Will I ever come back? And yes, you do, but you don't come back the same. You just don't. But the way that you do it, the way that you come back, the way you build into your life determines that you come back in a way that you're proud of. You come back in a way that you want to be. And please, if you feel that anger and rage inside, just understand that it's a process. You will go through it. If you have to, the problem also with it is that when someone passes, we love them so much, we don't want to be mad or mad at them. So even if they didn't die by suicide, sometimes we feel mad anyhow that they left us, and it doesn't have to be rational. Remember, please, that if you process that, allow yourself to say the things you want to say. Just go in a closet or go somewhere and just say the things you want to say, what you're mad at, and get it out. And if you want to say anything that you needed to say, because grief, the way I see it, it's a sudden cutoff. It's love stuck. It's stuck inside. There's nowhere for that love to go because they're gone. So it's like, where do I give this love, or where do I give this conversation? And it's wanting to reach out that one more time and you can't. And it's so scary. And what I do want to tell you is that you can say it to them because you already know their answer. You can hear it. It's incredible. So please remember that, okay? And remember that there's a lot of ways to move out of being this forever, okay? So please, if you would, I ask that you would share this, that you would subscribe to my YouTube channel. I'm across all podcast platforms. The reason that I ask that you do that, it helps me to do more things with YouTube. And my number of subscribers does not equate to the listeners that are globally listening. So it would really be helpful to me. I do not monetize my podcast. I do not do this for anything other than helping you to change your life. So what I do ask is that if you get something from this and you know someone who's grieving or someone who knows someone who's grieving, please share it. There's no like payoff for me except for your growth and your healing and the transformation. And I do believe that anything that I go through that I can overcome, even if I'm 5 minutes before you, I'm going to share it. I'm going to share it with you because we all need one another. And if you have the misfortune of going through what you're going through, consider this. Go through it and be the person that's there for someone else who goes through it. Because that's how we change lives. That's how we build connections. That's how we have harmony on our earth and not let other people just suffer alone. So please, I love you. I'm so sorry if you're going through this. I really, truly am.